Episode 4 of Season 4 of Fargo was titled The Pretend War. Lloyd retaliates, Josto asserts his leadership, Ethelrida makes a disturbing discovery, and the walls begin to close in on Otis. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of Season 4, Episode 4 of Fargo, The Pretend War. A very interesting setup episode, to say the least, and we get some supernatural ghosts that we're going to talk about in this spoiler discussion. Before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date with what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Definitely subscribe, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my other Fargo reviews, other TV reviews, movie reviews, live streams, all the fun things we do on this very channel. Make sure you all give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And in the comments, let's discuss, let's break it down, let's make theories about this episode and what we can expect in next week's episode. And let's just have a great discussion in the comments below. So first and foremost, overall thoughts. This was a really interesting setup episode. Like, this kind of set the war that we talked about last week with the Feta family. This also kind of solidifies that Lloyd is really now on par to just really go at the Feta family. And you know, he's been, Chris Rock's character, Lloyd, has been kind of a little bit more suave, a little bit more laid back and subdued, but this one he was definitely more assertive. So again, very good, interesting setup episode. We get more of that. You know, all the seasons have some layer of either supernatural, aliens, and this one we get the kind of ghostly Halloween vibes, which was really kind of surprising and kind of terrifying at the same time. And we'll get all into that details once we get into this recap. So again, let me know your overall thoughts of this episode. But with that being said, let's break it down and recap it. So it opens up again, like I said, and this was, it's kind of funny that we kind of get these Halloween scary vibes close to the Halloween season, where initially this season was supposed to come out in April. So it's just kind of a happy accident that we get kind of these supernatural ghostly figures in this episode. But as I digress, we see Etheretta seeing a dead person at the foot of the stairs, which kind of makes sense that they see dead people because they live in a mortuary. So I'm surprised this isn't like the first time that she's seen a ghost. But at the same time, Swanee's story about the devil may tie into maybe some of this curse that may be on the family. She may have upon this curse, this spirit to the Smutney family. But again, she sees this character, and we see all of our kind of within the first couple minutes, we see this beautiful montage, as we've been getting with every Fargo season, of all of our characters dealing with the aftermath of last week's events. But in the meantime, kind of the big moment that sets up this episode is we see that the cannons are attacking the Feta's family. We see that they take on this truck that has tomatoes on it, kind of a disguise to what they really have on a truck, which is over 300 assault rifles. And we see that they get surrounded by this, I thought was kind of visually kind of cool in regards to the fire that was kind of set up to set the stage for this pretend war that we might get between the, well, not might get, we will inevitably get the Fetas versus the Cannon family. But again, we get the visual of the fire surrounding the truck, and we see that Constant is on the truck, and you know, we see one of the henchmen for the Cannon family leave a mark on his face, and it's very interesting. I don't know if this O symbolizes something, because we see even Duffy refers to the mark on Constant's face as an O, but also the fire is shaped like an O. Urietta's name is an O, so I don't know if there's some type of theory or underlying kind of, you know, symbolism of what this O could potentially mean for foreshadowing for later in the season. Let me know if that's something that you guys considered as well. As we kind of move forward, we get another great kind of monologue. We got this last week with Dr. Senator and Abel, but this time the tables have turned. Where Abel kind of gives Dr. Senator his backstory of being an immigrant and how he perceived the American, you know, having someone's trust and having this American value, and having him have his dialogue, which I found to be very interesting. And both those two characters seem to be like the elders of the Cannon family. One's representing the Cannon family and has been through the different, you know, change of leadership. And then we have Dr. Senator, who's been, you know, the right-hand man for Lloyd. So I kind of love these two characters. Very subtle, but they've seen some things, you know, just based on their stories they given us these last couple weeks. So Abel talks about the Americans pretending to be something in regarding to this war, to, you know, both sides kind of pretending to be at war, but not really taking the initiative to officially go at each other's throat, because we know that will be coming later down the road. But as we kind of move forward, you know, Senator kind of gets Abel up to speed about, you know, what's been going on, the things that Abel doesn't know about in regards to Gaetello and his hit on Lloyd's son, and then the hit that, you know, the snatch and and grab at their places of operation. So we see that, Abel's just like, yeah, he really doesn't know what's going on. I love that Dr. Center is like, you need to see what's happening before you kind of come at me about setting this war. So very interesting bit of dialogue between some really interesting characters thus far. So as we kind of move forward, we see that the cannons are now in possession of over 300 assault rifles from that truck heist. And we also get a nice little reference to a character in season 2 who had a very small minor role, and that character was Mort Ketterman. Again, he appeared, I believe, in like episode 1 or episode 4 of season 2, but nonetheless, he's a crime syndicate. He was killed off in the episode. Spoiler alert for those that haven't seen season 2, but a nice little Easter egg there. But Lloyd figures out that the Feta family didn't have anything to do with the snatch and grab last week. That was probably just, as he calls it, a Bonnie and Clyde situation of two people just doing like a regular crime. But he's going to shake some leaves and crack some heads to kind of get some information, which we know what goes on later in this episode. Yet another interesting scene between Orietta and Josto. We saw the interaction in the car last week, and now we get a very interesting sex scene between the two, to say the least, no doubt. But what I liked in this scene is Orietta, man, she is just a dominant character, right? We see in this very interesting shot where she's standing on top of the bed and Justo's looking up to her as she's talking about him watching his mouth and sleeping with razors in your throat. You're just going to kill yourself. So she is very, even though Josto thinks like he's the man in charge, he runs the Feta family, but no, Orietta has her ways of manipulating people and getting things that she wants, especially when we find out what's in that closet. So Josto needs to definitely watch his mouth and keep his eye on her, because she is someone that more than meets the eye, to say the least. So again, I just love that juxtaposition, that camera angle. But Etheretta comes to Orietta's house to take her up on the offer of being this organizer, and we'll talk about what she finds in cleaning up the house. But she's taken initiative to become this organizer because her family needs money. So she is taking that bait, and she finds out some things, no less. And we'll talk about that scene here in a bit. But moving forward to some other characters, we get Rabbi spilling the beans to Josto about his brother, Gaiatello, and his hit on, the Cannon's oldest boy, Aloy's oldest boy. And this kind of really, like I said last week, sets the stage for this civil war, civil war, another war. We got multiple wars going on here, but this is a family war. And we've seen that with a lot of the Fargo families, a lot of the crime syndicates. There's people that want to get above the boss and people doing sneaky things behind people's backs. So definitely a trope that we've come used to. But it really would be interesting to see where this family comes together to take against the Cannons, or they're going to just ultimately take each other out. So I kind of love that moment there that we get between Josto and Rabbi, because as I had mentioned last few weeks, Jason Schwartzman, I'm a fan of his, but him as Josto and his brother, Gaiatello, they have been kind of, I don't want to say miscast, but I just haven't felt like the stuff that's on the page has kind of translated well to the screen. Like, I just found him to be very cartoonish, and both of those characters to be very kind of underwhelming and not too menacing, but they definitely kind of switch it up with Josto in this episode when he's talking to Rabbi about loyalty, and later on we'll talk about a scene where he's, telling Abel to do what he says. So he definitely took more initiative in this episode, which I like. So as we move forward, we see Otis attempts to get rid of Duffy, but he fails at doing so, as we see Otis kind of setting up this informant, making up this story about how the people that Duffy are looking for, Swanee and Zelmar, have left to Chicago, and Otis is like, good job. Not really that great of a job, but it looks like we're going to get him off of our smell and get him off this case. But no, Duffy tells him, I'm a U.S. Marshal, so we got people in Chicago, Indianapolis, so I'm going to stay here. I was stationed to be here, so I'm going to stay here. So we see he kind of tags along with Otis to go check out an informant, Rabbi, telling him to go meet him at the spot. And, that was a really kind of interesting scene, seeing Duffy interact with Constant and also Josto, and I think, or Gaiatello. I think this isn't the last time those three characters will share a scene together, but I really kind of like that scene. But before we even got to that moment, we see Josto embarrasses his brother, right, Gaiatello, and confronting him about all the stuff that he did last week with trying to put the hit on the Cannons. The guns are now taken, and he's really calling out his brother, which I found to be, again, Josto took initiative in this episode, and I kind of like that. Jason Schwartzman, again, very comedic approach, very kind of lackluster, cartoonish at times, but this episode he really stepped up to me, guys, and I really kind of like that. Again, him pointing the gun at his brother and having him put his knife away. I was like, okay, Josto, I see you, man. You're stepping up now. But again, and Gaiatello still to me is just like that one character that just seems to be in another show. In this episode, he really didn't do that much, but he wasn't as over the top as usual, but it's still like he's the only character that just really hasn't resonate with me quite yet. But again, I'll say that Josto, going back to another scene of him kind of taking initiative, him telling Abel to go to New York to kiss the ring and to let everyone know that everything's fine, but also maybe bring some guys with you, but also telling Otis to crack some heads, to catch the Cannon family in Stillings and all their stuff. So I like, again, Josto taking initiative and stepping up as a leader and being serious more so than ever. So we see Etheretta cleaning the house. This is a big moment here. As she cleans the house, she comes across the closet room that Orietta tells her not to go in. And in doing so, she finds some dark stuff in the past of Orietta and her sinister side. She sees all the trophies of her killed her victims. She has different stuff, different things that she's taken from them. We see like the obituary things that she cuts out of the newspaper. But then, Ethelrida, unfortunately, as a 16-year-old girl, doesn't keep track of her stuff that she leaves in the closet. She leaves her journal or her notebook in the closet, but she also takes the ring of the Feta family's father that passed away. So Orietta, she's not organized, but she's going to realize that someone's been in that closet, and she's going to know that it was Etheretta. So that's going to be a really interesting storyline to see moving forward. As we kind of move forward here, we see Lloyd confronts Rabbi about the hit, and in doing so in this scene, there's a lot on Rabbi's plate. Not only did Lloyd tell him to, if something happens to my youngest son, but if something happens to my oldest son, I'm going to feed you to the pigs. But then Rabbi has to deal with the civil war between Josto and Gaiatello. So there's a lot on his plate. And we all know the tragic past of him being tossed back and forth amongst the family. So there's a lot to look forward to with Rabbi. And he's the one character that I can definitely say I just feel so bad. I feel bad for the Smutny family, but also, like I said, Rabbi, man, he has no one to lean on. So very interesting scene. So as we kind of wrap up here, we get some creepy Halloween vibes where we see Zelmar cleaning off the cash, but then in doing so, we get this ghostly figure. I don't know if this is the same ghost that we saw in the beginning of the episode, and I don't know if this is the same ghost that we saw in episode 1, but it might be the same ghost, or again, there's a mortuary involved, so it could be just dead spirits in general. But we see that this ghostly figure walks towards Swanee, which makes me think about when Swanee talked about her family having this family curse and the devil. So I don't know if that's foreshadowing for that Bonnie and Clyde or Bonnie and Bonnie relationship kind of coming to a tragic end, or if there's something even more sinister that's going to be on the Smutny family with them getting involved. So let me know what you all thought about that moment in the comments below. So as we kind of move forward, we get a very interesting, and also I should say that Zelmar does give the money that she stole from the Cannons to Thurman Smutny, and he takes it upon himself as we kind of move forward and wrap up this episode to go to Lloyd's house, deliver the money. He gets a little intimidated, but he thinks everything's fine and dandy. But Lloyd realizes that this money smells a little funny. It smells like throw up, and we know that Swanee threw up on the cast last week, so he puts the pieces together, and we are to assume that is going to be, he's going to head over to the Smutny's house probably next week. As we wrap up, Thurman comes home ready to celebrate with his wife, dancing with Mrs. Smutny, dancing with Ethelrida, and his sister realizes, You did what now? You gave Lloyd the money back. What did my sister do? What did she tell you? And she just knows that her sister messed up, and she walks away. And Thurman's just sitting down talking to his daughter, and his words, as he says, it'll all blow over soon enough. And I'm thinking to myself, as Ethelrida hugs her dad, this may be the last time you're hugging your daddy, because he might not make it after next week once Lloyd finds out who took that money, and they're going to probably assume that the Smutny family was involved, which we know they weren't, but they're associated with the criminal. So very interesting to say the least. As a kind of overall review part of this video here, I like this episode a lot. I thought this was a really good setup for the weeks ahead, setting up the civil war between Josto and Gaiatello and Josto, setting up that civil war, but also again with Lloyd and the Cannons going against the Feta family, really kind of setting up that war as well. We get a lot of supporting characters that get a lot to do this episode. Like I had mentioned, Rabbi and the stuff he's dealing with having the responsibility of both the Cannon boys on his watch, but also him going against the Feta family and not taking the side of Josto. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Again, things that I really did like about characters that I felt weren't as strong as I want them to be, which is number one, Chris Rock. I've liked his performance, but this episode, him and Josto, Lloyd and Josto really kind of stepped up to me in this episode. They became more of that menacing crime syndicate leader. We saw Lloyd not really playing games, not really being suave like he normally is. He was just very assertive and very about figuring things out. And, if he has to kill people to protect his family, he'll do that. And the same goes with Josto, him going up against his brother, him saying, you got to pick your side, or you're going to go, you're either with me or against me. So I love the two kind of leaders of their family stepping up, right? And also, my two favorite characters were involved in this episode, those being Orietta, Etheretta, but, they were kind of in the background, but the thing that's going to really set the stage is with Etheretta finding that closet, and now Orietta knowing that she knows her secret, where is that going to do moving forward? And of course, Duffy being involved and getting in Otis's business, that's something to keep an eye out for. But overall, man, I thought this was a really great episode. I love the creepy kind of sinister vibe with those ghosts and seeing where that comes from with this family curse and the devil. So the Smutney family also under pressure. And again, with Lloyd knowing where that money came from, Thurman, you might be seeing your last days, man. You work in the mortuary. You might be staying downstairs yourself sometime soon. But overall, good episode. Like the setup. And but more importantly, I want to know what you all thought of this episode. Let me know your pros, your cons, and your theories for the weeks ahead. As always, make sure to like, share, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my other Fargo reviews, other TV show reviews that I cover on this channel, movie reviews, live streams, all the fun things we do on this very channel. Hope you all are having a great day. Thank you for watching this video. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.